Do you have something you regret? A chance you didn't take, thing you shouldn't have bought, word you should have said that would have won you that argument you had 10 years ago? And whenever you think of it, you think, ugh, what a waste. I've wasted a lot of things in my life. Money, time, celery I bought because I thought I should eat some celery, but then I remembered I really don't like celery, but I felt guilty that I already bought it, so instead of just throwing it away, I let it sit in the vegetable drawer for 2 months until it started decomposing enough that I felt justified in getting rid of it. Now, thinking about things I've wasted used to really bother me. In fact, it used to be the thing that kept me up all night, when I would otherwise be sleeping, which I am capable of doing. But then I had an epiphany that changed how I viewed waste forever. This realization fundamentally changed how I think. It turned my relationship with myself from one based in shame and regret to one where I constantly feel motivated to do things that make me feel proud of myself. So today, I want to share it with you. Hi, I'm Mayhem, musician, philosopher, cult leader, human, and you're watching my series Neurohacking, How to Rewire Your Mind Whichever Way You Like. If you typically think a lot of negative thoughts, it's probably either anxiety about the future or regret about the past. And if you think about it, anxiety about the future is often caused by a feeling that since the past went badly, there's a good chance the future will too. People who have no regrets about the past tend not to have much anxiety about the future either, because since they're comfortable with how their life has gone so far, they reasonably assume that that will continue. And this is why understanding and dealing with regret is so important. It's one of the main things responsible for depression and anxiety, and one of the biggest triggers for self-hatred, rumination, procrastination, and other self-destructive habits. So, how do we deal with regret? The first step is to understand it. Regret is basically feeling like we wasted something and that we should have known better. Let's break that down a little more. What does it mean to waste something? We can understand this better by looking at the opposite, when you feel like you got a really good value for something. Think of your favorite shirt that you found for $5 at the thrift store, the best friend you made by getting out of your comfort zone one time, or the time you were everyone's hero when the power went out because you always carry a flashlight. Because you succeeded in getting what you wanted in these instances, you don't see the effort it took to achieve them as wasted. It's the total opposite, where you probably would have been willing to put in way more effort than you actually did to get that outcome. Now let's consider regrets. Think of an impulse purchase that was super expensive but you don't even like anymore. An embarrassing joke you said that turned into an awkward silence with everyone staring at you. Or the Rubik's Cube you learned trying to impress your crush that just made you look like an even bigger nerd. Because you didn't get an outcome you wanted, in fact, you got something you didn't want, the effort it took to get that outcome seems like a massive waste. If you knew what you know now, you wouldn't be willing to put the same effort into doing it that you actually did. In fact, you might even put effort into trying to keep it from happening. So now we have a picture of value and waste. These two things may seem like opposites, but in fact, they're two sides of the same coin. One cannot exist without the other. But how can that be? Well, hindsight is 20/20. It's easy to flip a coin and if it comes up heads, say, huh, I should have guessed heads instead of tails. But before you flip the coin, it's impossible to know how it will land. Tails isn't a bad guess. It's just as good as heads, even if it turns out to be wrong. There's a quote by Soren Kierkegaard I love. Life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards. And when we feel regret, we are always looking backwards, with knowledge we didn't have when we made the decision. If we made a decision that turned out bad, we feel like we were bad for making it. If it turned out good, we feel clever for making it. But we tend to underestimate the role that luck played in whether it turned out good or bad. There's actually a name for this phenomenon in psychology, the fundamental attribution error. When judging decisions, our brains tend to overemphasize the role that character plays and underemphasize the role that situation plays. The fundamental attribution error is usually used in the context of judging other people harshly, but letting ourselves off the hook. But when the brain becomes depressed and anxious, it starts to turn the fundamental attribution error against itself. Now, there's a good reason why the brain does this. It helps strengthen an internal locus of control, the idea that our actions determine what happens in our lives, and helps us take accountability when things are going wrong. But if taken too far, this phenomenon can lead to self-hatred over things that weren't even our fault, or punishing ourselves for decisions that were actually good decisions to make with what we knew at the time. This is the place that I was in just last year, constantly thinking about bad decisions I made and hating myself because of them. But then I had the eureka moment that changed everything. The idea that I made this video to share with you. See, if life is in many ways a game of chance, and some of the decisions we make turn out good or bad without any way to know which is which, then there really aren't good or bad decisions, only decisions with good or bad outcomes. The decisions themselves are neutral. And think back to the best decisions you made, things you got way more value for than you put into. You probably would be willing to put more value into getting them if you had to, right? You might have gotten your favorite shirt for only $5, but since you wear it every week, it's really worth $50 to you. You could have put more value into it, and you still wouldn't consider it a waste. Except, you already did. Look at all the decisions you made that didn't turn out the way you wanted to. You took a chance and it didn't work out, but the best things in your life came from taking the same chances. The success stories are just the chances that did work out, but none of them would have been possible if you were the type of person who never took risks. When you look at it that way, that winning and losing are two sides of the same coin, you realize that you basically paid for the times you won with all the times you lost. You didn't get nothing for losing. You actually got all the things you won that you ignored because you take them for granted. But if you actually tally up your wins and losses, you might find that you won more than you lost. For example, I've wasted a lot of time doom scrolling on Instagram, and I used to feel a lot of regret over that. But I also met some of my best friends through Instagram, and I never would have met them if I never used the app. If I could get back all the hours of my life I spent looking at memes, but I would have to lose these people as a consequence, I wouldn't take that trade. These people mean so much to me that if I lost them, I would spend the rest of my life trying to get them back. And in that context, the number of hours it took me to find them seems like a small price to pay in comparison. Another good example is clothes. I've spent a lot of money on clothes, but I've ended up getting rid of most of them. It's taken me a long time to find my style, what I like and what looks good on me, and I had lots of awkward phases trying to figure it out. If I knew 10 years ago what I know now, I could have built my wardrobe for a fraction of what it actually cost me. But there was no way for me to know back then whether I'd still like something 10 years later. I could only pick out what I really liked at the time. And if I had to pay a personal stylist to find what looks good on me, it would have cost even more than what I actually spent, and my style still wouldn't be something perfectly unique to me. When I view it that way, the money I spent finding my style seems like an investment instead of a waste. It's like I was paying myself to learn how to be my own personal stylist and figure out what clothes make me feel the most like me. In my life, one of my biggest values is refinement. To narrow down all the possible options of ways to live my life into just the ones that truly make me happy. But doing that requires first exploring as many options as you can, trying lots of different things in order to figure out which one is your favorite. And when I had this epiphany, it occurred to me as a single sentence. Refinement requires waste. Your failures are not a waste. They are the price you pay for your wins. And if you change your focus from the things you lost to the things you gained, you might just realize it was worth it. Love, mayhem.